Today is Monday, November 11th, 2014, and this is the start of an interview with Cheyenne Bailey at Georgia Highlands College. My name is Jennifer Scott, and I'll be the interviewer. Today's recording is part of the GHC Through Oral History project, and our theme is our stories and experiences. Welcome. Do I have your permission to record today?
Yes.
Let's begin. So let's start from the beginning. I want to ask, who would you say was somebody who was your biggest influence growing up?
I think one of my biggest influences growing up would definitely be my mom. Very strong, resilient woman. Kind of gave me all my good like basics, ethics, everything like that. She's very still to this day, hardworking, go-getter. So definitely a big influence.
Okay. And do you have anybody like that at Georgia Highlands, like that you would see as an mentor or a big influence on you?
Like an individual mentor, I don't think I could just pick one. There's definitely a couple people who have kind of like guided and helped me shape to where I'm going. Professor Erica Walzak is definitely a big one. I ended up having to take biology one, and I had her for a professor, and that was when I was still kind of trying to figure things out. And then ended up having her for more classes as I worked higher into my degree. I definitely go to her for advice quite often. With her
Hmm.
already being in the field, and she's really good at helping direct me. Another big influential person for me would be Jessica Osborne. She works in the library,
Okay.
but she also has like a really good view and perspective. She'll give me the advice. She'll kind of like give me the advice I'm looking for, but she kind of like is very mom-like as well. Like she'll tell me the truth even when I don't want to hear it sometimes, and I really
Yeah.
appreciate her for it. But also I could be
Mhm.
having like a horrible rough day and she's like there to support me as well. So I think they're two of the biggest ones, but they're definitely not the only ones. There are so many people who have really been helpful and helped guided me throughout my journey at Highlands.
Okay, so you have a good support system at school too.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, that's good. That's really good. Okay, so what unique traditions or uh, events at GHC do you enjoy or you've enjoyed taking part in?
So new tradition, we have homecoming. It was really fun. Running for homecoming court. I ended up winning for the senior class, and we had some great events. Um,
Mhm.
Also partaking in student government as the SGA president. I really enjoy that. I definitely am still. It's kind of hard only having like a 1 year term and trying to get in and do as much stuff as you can within that time frame. But I really enjoy it just because it allows me to connect with the student body and connect with everybody on campuses. Yeah, I really enjoy it. Those are probably like my two favorite things.
Okay, okay. Yeah, we'll discuss more about that shortly because I really want to get into that part. Um, uh, do you feel like you've contributed a lot, in your role at Georgia Highlands?
If you ask me, I feel like no, because there's more I
Why?
want to do. I feel like there's so much that I want to do. That's why I was like, if you ask me, no. If you ask other people, like I've said this to other people, I'm like, I feel like I haven't done anything. And they're like, no, you done blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, okay, I guess. But like, there's still so much more that I want to do. I'm actually having like a meeting later this week to harass some people and see if I can get some things done. Um, I think outwardly it may not look like I've done a lot, but I like to try to do a lot of things in the background. I'm trying to push for more people to like join SGA so I can have more
Hmm.
forward-facing people. But I kind of like to be, I like to see the whole plan and see everything going. So I think technically, yeah, I've done and contributed some things. Like I got to help with establishing the homecoming tradition, not picking the court since I ran, but I did get to help like pick the theme. I didn't come up with the theme, but I really loved it. Help with some of the ideas that we were going to have throughout the week for homecoming. So, like things that I thought that other students would enjoy or things I've heard other students enjoy. So, it was really nice to be able to contribute in that way. But there's
Hmm.
still so much more I feel like I want to do, so I don't feel like I've contributed enough.
Really?
Yes,
That's
I want to do so much more.
because I see your name a lot. Just see it. So yeah. Huh. That's interesting. So and this kind of goes back to the beginning. But
Hmm.
you know, what inspired you to start at GHC, and why'd you uh decide to stay here? I
Um,
kind of meant to ask you that in the beginning, but you know,
you're good.
I put them out
Um,
of order by accident. Sorry.
that is okay. What made me start GHC? So when I came to GHC, I had been working as an EMT, enjoyed it. I think when I first started, I was still working on the ambulance, transitioning to working in the hospital.
Hmm.
And I enjoyed it, but I was like, I want more. It was good. The pay was okay, but ooh, excuse me, I just knew I wanted more. And so that's when I thought about pursuing nursing. I looked up a couple schools. I found GHC. I really liked that they had multiple locations because I still hadn't necessarily settled into one city since I moved to Georgia. Um,
Hmm.
so I like that there was some flexibility with that. I also like that they had online options. And honestly, I really love the cost as well. Being a non-traditional student who has used like financial aid and stuff in the past, I knew that paying out of pocket would eventually become inevitable for me, and I wanted to finish where I started. So I like the affordability as well. And then when I went to visit one of their open houses, um, it was at the Douglasville campus, which doesn't exist anymore. But
Hmm.
everybody was really friendly when I went. I liked the vibe. It just seemed like a place where I could flourish.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I answered the full question.
Or that change.
Mm-mm-mm-mm. Say that again. Oh no, did I lose you?
I hear you now.
Okay, yeah, okay, perfect. But yeah, that I think that's it. I think that's it.
What?
Uh-oh.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Did I answer the full question?
I asked, you were pursuing a degree in nursing and you changed to environmental and natural resources. So what inspired that change?
Got you. So when I was finishing my prereqs for nursing. I was so excited for it. And then COVID happened. And at the time I was working in the ER. And yeah, it was not for me. Uh it showed a different side, like not necessarily in a bad way, but there was just like a
Hmm.
lot of things going on. And I was just like, maybe this is not exactly what I wanted to do. And so I had already been taking some of the prereqs I needed for nursing, and I looked at what degrees best fit with the classes I already had. I was like, I already put this time in. I wanted to at least get my associate's bare minimum. And that's when, like, one of the people I mentioned earlier, Professor Walzak, um, I was just like, I don't know. And she was like, well, why don't you finish your degree in bio? So I was like, okay, well, let me look and see what that entails. And I only needed a couple more credits out and I'd be able to finish my associates. So I was like, let me at least finish my bachelor's, I mean my associates in bio, and then I'll figure out what my next step was. And so I did that. I was taking online classes. I'm not the biggest fan of them. I took biology 2 online during COVID, destroyed
Hmm.
it absolutely horribly. Decided to go back in person the next semester, and I took the class with Professor Brandy Rogers, and that was kind of
Hmm.
like the turning point, which made me want to go into the program. In a sense, that was the first time I had took a biology lab that was different. Typically, biology labs are very straightforward. You have a lab notebook, you're kind of going through the motion. and you complete the lab, but you may not fully understand what was going on. And that was the first semester where they had us kind of build and design our own labs and projects. So we actually got to
Mhm.
go out into the field and do research and be more hands-on. And that's when I really realized, whoa, I really kind of like this biology thing. But we only have an associate. And so I was actually going to transfer to Dalton State to get my bachelor's in
Okay.
biology. And right when I was about to transfer is when they started the bachelor's program here. And so I decided, okay, bye bye, Dalton. And then I decided to start back here and pursue my bachelor's just from that like one class, that one opportunity. And that's kind of what I meant by like I have multiple mentors here because they all kind of help show me the things that I didn't realize that I actually enjoyed. Um, so yeah, nursing was originally the goal, but after the whole epidemic, I there was too many risks and it didn't feel as worthwhile for me at the time. And then I ended up kind of like in that process refining my love of nature and wanting to be outdoors, and that's what made me want to go back into the environmental program.
Okay. And what all does the environmental program entail? Like
Oh, like classes or like what we do
just
or
just in general, like what, because I I don't know much about it, and so like what, yeah, what, just in general, yes.
okay. So like our classes are a lot of our classes are geared, ooh, sorry, towards like the environment and ecology. So like ecology is one of the classes that we have. So talking about the different ecosystems, big scale, small scale, how everything kind of works together. We have several policy classes. So talking and learning about the policies that are in place to help protect the environment, as well as different governing bodies and how they interact with each other, and what roles we can play as environmentalists within like corporations, the government, things like that. But then we also have like our other classes and labs that we do to learn more specifically about things. So we had what was it, wildlife management. So kind of like how to not so much manage preserves, but that was kind of like a thing. Like if we were out working for like DNR, the Department of Natural Resources, like how would we go about identifying species there, protecting species? What do we do in these situations? How do we kind of bridge that gap between people and the environment? And then we have classes like botany where we're learning specifically about plants, their families, how to identify and break things down like that. We have a hydrology class coming up, and forest ecology. I'm taking those next semester.
Hmm.
Soils, a whole course dedicated just to the soil, which I'm not gonna lie, I was not looking forward to that class originally. I was like, I'm gonna learn about dirt, like that's boring. And then and I was like, oh, this is actually really cool. Like, yeah, there's dirt everywhere, but it's funny because you don't think of it as like a resource, and it's like a limited resource because you learn about like how the soil is created in the breakdown. So you got like a little bit of geology in there, but then it's like the soil composition. How do we know like is it clay? Is it silt? Is it I can never sand? How much of
Hmm.
each do you have? What grows really good in there? What are the nutrients in there looking like the pH or the nitrogen? How can we fix it if it's not where we need to be? What things can we grow in it efficiently? Like there's just so many like little counterparts. And then after we do all of that, stopping and looking at how like each class comes together and how we can kind of like just do better as a whole, whether it's working in conservation biology, trying to like preserve a species or preserve like an area, or whether we're working for a corporation and maybe they're trying to develop something in a new area. So we have to know the laws and what things are in that area and what's the best way we can help that company out, but also make sure we're not destroying the environment in the process. So it's a lot. It's a lot, but I enjoy
Yeah.
it.
It sounds interesting though. It
It's so
does.
much fun.
It does sound interesting. Hmm. And your mentor had something to do with your change in degree to an extent, right?
Yeah, a little bit because like when I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, like I was kind of like, I like the classes. These like I like my science classes. They're nice, but I don't know. This sounds so bad. I was like, I don't know if I'm smart enough to pursue a degree in science.
Right.
Like there was always this like stigma. And like I'm like, I enjoyed it, but I was like, I don't think I have the capacity to learn it. And then she was like, well, just think about it. Like it's not as bad as you think. And I did really well in that class. And then when I took the next class, um, bio two, and we had to create the lab, and that's what was with the other professor. And it was actually the same one. I have failed her class online, reached out for help, and I was like, you know what? I really enjoyed your class. I think I just didn't grasp it because it was online. I want to come and take it in person with you. Um, and that's when I really like I learned that like asking questions is key because I'm like, okay, well, what about this? Or how would I do this? Or if I was thinking about this, what is the path? Like even now, I want to go to grad school. And I'll still ask them, like, I was thinking of this for grad school, or I decided I wanted to take a break. I'm like, if I take a break before going to grad school, will this hinder me? Or what kind of things do I need to look for? And how do I do this? And so a lot of the people, especially in the STEM department, have been very, very helpful with like kind of helping guide me to what I want. Like they know I'm like, I don't know what I want to do, but these are the areas I enjoy. And they're like, oh, well, have you thought about looking into this? Or I found this really cool scientific article that might pique your interest. Why don't you peruse it? And so, yeah, that's definitely kind of like helped influence and guide me a little bit. They didn't like
Yeah.
say you should do this, but they're like, here are some things that pique your interest. Let's keep piquing that interest until you find something you really enjoy. And I appreciate them for that.
Okay. So you would agree that mentors are very important to have for
Absolutely.
students. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes. I need to find me some. Because I
Yes.
typically just go to class and go home. I don't
No,
really,
I
but
I
I
giggle
probably
all the
need.
time. Um,
Hmm?
I giggle all the time because Dr. Hobbs, like the president of the college, he always has this like little thing he talks about in speech. And this sounds so bad as many times as I've heard it that I don't know the exact number, but he's like, you need so many credit hours to graduate, which means so many classes, which means so many teachers. And he was like, you should be able to like just like little like how you kind of connect with people in your everyday life, taking
Hmm.
interest. You should be able to connect like that with at least one or two professors. Like there's a couple that you're going to run into, whether it's like your history professor and you're like, hey, I found this really cool article that I wanted to like send to you and get your opinion on, or whatever. Just like remembering that your professors are also like humans and just striking
Yeah.
up that conversation with them can like help you start creating that bond. And then next thing you know, you didn't accidentally got yourself a mentor.
Yeah. I might need to find somebody. But it's just, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how to do that.
Honestly, just
So,
start randomly talking to people, especially like your professors. Those are like the easiest ones. Like, there's always going to be that one class that you end up enjoying. And I feel like that's kind of what happened with me in that biology class. But
hmm.
like it was just like questions and then she talked about like it was like, oh well, blah blah blah. And it sounds silly because they're your professors, but I can't remember what it was, but it was something. I was like, well, how do you know that? And it sounds so silly because like she's the professor, but she's like, oh, because I worked in the lab for this time. And she was like, I could do this, this, and this. And like people would try to do this and I'd know like immediately from doing this that often. I was just like, oh wow, that's really cool. And then it
Hmm.
kind of like, well, if you did that, well, did you do any of this? And you start having that conversation with them and you don't even realize like you forget that they're your professor for a minute
Yeah.
and then go back to just being a person and the next thing you know you bonded. So all you got to do is find that one class you like and there's just going to be that question that you ask and it's going to end up just spiraling.
Okay. Well, I can definitely see how you have the roles that you have at the school, which leads me to my next question. So, what are the roles of the student ambassador?
Um so the student ambassador, we were like kind of you can apply for it but you're also kind of like picked. So I was in the very first trial run. It was before it was actually like a job. It was a Phi Theta Kappa honor project and they established it. But pretty much student ambassadors are supposed to be like leaders and representations of the
Mhm.
school. So we help out with a little bit of everything, and I do mean a little bit of everything. When we have preview days for potential students where they're helping, whether it's like as tour guides, answering questions for the students, kind of letting prospective students know like kind of what Georgia Highlands is like. We help out at orientation, helping the new students get settled, answering any questions, things like that. But we also do stuff off campus as well, like for example, Savoy, the Automobile Museum by the school, by the Cartersville campus.
Mhm.
We have had the opportunity to go there and kind of help out. We usually don't do like anything too crazy, but we're there to kind of like partially help them out and also represent the school. So sometimes we're driving the go-karts around, shuttling people to and from their car. And while we're doing that, we're just kind of talking to them like, how was your experience? Or sometimes they'll like no, and they're like, oh, because we'll have like our shirts on. And they're like, oh, are you from Georgia Highlands? They're like, yeah. And I'm like, how do you like it? Tell us about it. And so it's kind of like being out in the community and connecting with people who we may not normally reach out to. Um, and then we'll have like figures come from schools, from other schools, or even like Board of Regents members, political members. And we're kind of just like the student face essentially. We're there to kind of like help out, be that face for the school, but also it's like a really good time as well. So it's really nice. It's really big on networking as well. Being a student ambassador, I've had a chance to meet people that even like within the school that maybe I wouldn't have met as easily before. Um, so I really enjoy it.
Okay. And and you kind of answered this a little bit with the last topic about talking to people, but how would you encourage a non-traditional student to become more involved at GHC?
Mm, if involved with faculty, definitely, like I said before, just kind of having those conversations. But if they want to be involved in general, I would
Hmm.
say honestly, pick a club. And it sounds like so silly, like because it's so simple, but it doesn't feel simple sometimes. But there's so many. Georgia Highlands is unique in the fact that like you have so many traditional and non-traditional students.
Hmm.
And you may not even realize it. Like there's a lot of people sometimes who do not realize that I'm a non-traditional student just because I look a little bit younger. Um, Sorry, I thought I heard my mom yelling. My apologies. Just because I look a little bit younger. But then there's also people I've run into who like are non-traditional. I just frazzled my train of thought. Sorry. Being in clubs is like the best thing ever. You get a really good mix. Like regardless of which club it is, you're gonna have a couple non-traditional students in there. But also the students themselves, the ones who are more traditional and younger, sometimes they might act feisty, but they kind of benefit as well from like non-traditional students and our different perspective on things. They might
Hmm.
be like, hey, I think we should do this. And you're like, hey, that's really cool. But, what about we should do that, but let's add this as well just to be like a little bit more inclusive. Or, oh, I've experienced, maybe like because of a job you've worked before, they might be trying to figure out how to execute an event. And you're like, oh, have you ever thought about doing, X, Y, and Z? We used to do this at a company I used to work for, blah, 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 blah. And they might be like, oh, never would have thought of that, but you add an extra perspective being that non-traditional student. Um, and honestly, I can't think of one club where there is not at least one non-traditional student, but it's a really good way to kind of like bridge that gap and meet people and kind of get a little bit more rooted into GHC.
Okay. So I know we did discuss this before, but like since since we did, I have really been trying to think of like somewhere where I could fit, you know,
I'm
just
telling
looking
you.
around and trying to see where to go,
Hmm.
like what kind of club or something I could do, you know. Um, so I really have put thought into it. It's
I
just the
love
doing.
that. I love that. I'm telling you, you should read. I can always send you the link. You should join the group me for women of GHC. It's so great. Like that's the one club like I tell everybody like regardless if they're like, "Well, I don't know where I want to join." Women of GHC is such a great club. If you were a lady, identify as a lady, Women of GHC is the club for you because it's all about women encouraging women. They
Hmm.
do a lot of events. They go on a lot of outings. But even just like in the group me chat, like somebody was just like, I'm struggling with like my schedule. They're like, oh, this is how you do it. Or they're like, do you have any advice for this? Like, it's just women being women. And it's so positive and encouraging. It's like the best thing ever. And the current president is non-traditional as well, as a non-traditional student too, which is even better. So
Okay.
it's
Well, you
great.
can send that to me.
I got you.
Okay. And okay, so what changes do you want to make as the SGA president?
I really would love like the biggest thing, and it's been a struggle for a minute, has been student engagement. I really want to build student engagement, but I know that means we have to change how we kind of communicate. So a couple things that I'm trying to work on the back end, and I'm hoping to really roll out with a little bit more next semester is how we present information. So I really want to build more of a social media presence geared towards current students to let them know what events and activities we have going on. I'm looking for different ways to actually get that information out there to students when we are having events. Like I know something new that they've been implementing is when we're having things, sending out the text chain. Because right now everything's through email, but the format for the email sometimes can feel overwhelming and not everybody checks it. So we'll have an
Hmm.
event, nobody shows up, or and then everybody's like, "Oh, I didn't know this was happening," or "Why don't we have this?" And I'm like, "We just had that." And they're like, "Oh, I didn't know." And I'm like, "It's in the email." And they're like, "I don't check the email." So
Yeah.
that's like a very common trend. So it's kind of figuring out how to fix that. And then another thing I want to do is kind of build on campus culture. Um, I felt like homecoming was kind of the start, but I want there to be more things like you just kind of know, like you're like, oh, you go to Highlands, have y'all had such and such yet? Like I want to do a field day, either a field day and or like a carnival at the end of the academic year. And I would love for it to be like an annual event. So if we do the carnival, it'd be something that opens up to the community, but like for the students, and the field day is kind of like, old school field day that we used to do in school, but it's
Yeah.
geared to club participation. So you just have to be in a club to participate, and it'll be clubs versus clubs to see like which club out clubs them all essentially. But it's just like a really fun, just something really fun, a day geared towards students going out and having a good time. So I really just want to kind of build that campus culture, especially across all the campuses since we do have several. Some campuses it can be a little trickier, like Marietta, where you don't have as much space, or even Paulding,
Yeah.
compared to like the Rome and Cartersville campus. So it's like also figuring out how to adjust for those other campuses so they're not left out because we don't want them left out. We want them to still be included. It just might be a little bit different.
Like
Um,
finding a big meeting spot for everybody
yeah.
at one day.
Yep. So that's kind of my biggest thing is just like figuring out how to fix that communication so we can get student engagement up. And then at the same time, kind of building more of a campus culture so people have more stuff to look forward to.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that. Because I've seen things in my emails and stuff, but I've been having to check my email, pretty regularly as of late. So that's how
Hmm.
I see things. But I could understand the text chain stuff. Yeah, that
Yep.
makes sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So how hard is it to make changes like that? I mean, is there like certain steps that you have to go through, or you know, like a chain of command type thing? I mean, how does that work if you want to
Yeah.
like
It
make
depends on what
changes like
like it depends on what it is. So, like one thing I'm trying to do is I really want to get for like SGA specifically. Eventually I like to do it for all clubs, but like an at Highlands email. So kind of like how we have Like our student emails, like your name at student.highlands.edu, or the professors
Mhm.
have like their name at highlands.edu. I would love to get one for the clubs because an issue that I see sometimes, and it's happened in some clubs I've been in before, like we'll have, say, an Instagram account, which is not an issue, but we'll make like a Gmail. So it might be like, for instance, Equality Alliance. I used to be the president of that club. So
Yeah.
we have one, it's like EAC Highlands at gmail.com. That's like our back end one. And so we made like an Instagram account for our club, and let's just say we had a website. Well, I graduate this year, and I think the current president graduates too. And if we don't find somebody to succeed before we leave, then the issue becomes how do we give them that information, which technically we could leave it with the advisor. But then what happens hypothetically if the advisor leaves as well? Now we have this page that nobody can get a hold of or manage.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but if we had like Equality Alliance email at highlands.edu, let's just say we all graduate. Let's just say the club fizzles out, but a year later somebody comes back. We already have the email. All that we would have to do is reset, and then they would be able to gain access to all of that stuff again and rebuild it. But the thing that comes down to is like the emails, we have to go through a process with like IT to get that cleared. So I'm working with one of my SGA advisors to get that. I want to do it with SGA first, see how that goes, and then kind of start fizzling out to the other clubs. So that way, when they do make like group me's or when they make like Instagrams, everything's in one centralized location. It just kind of makes it easier to manage as time goes on and it becomes more official.
Mhm.
Another thing I would really love to do is for each club to have their own club page on the website. So like when you
Mhm.
go to student engagement and list the club, right now the only club that has one is Game Club. And it makes sense because a lot of them, as well as their
Yeah.
advisors, really good with tech. So they were
Heck
able to
yeah.
do that. And so I talked about all clubs being able to have one, but we have to have somebody, each club would have to have somebody to manage the page. And they'd have to be the one that the feature that they use is, I think he said WordPress. So you'd have to be able to use WordPress to a degree. So it's just also being able to get everybody trained up to know how to use it and then making sure you have somebody to manage it. So it comes down to like a bit of IT, but also the individual clubs themselves and making sure there's somebody who knows how to do that. So that's where some of the back end work comes into. Like I've been teaching myself how to use it, and I want to be
Mhm.
able to make a guide so that way we can roll it out. And then I would love to have an info session day where like each club sends like one or two people who would potentially be managing it. So probably like their secretary or social media person if they have one for their clubs, and then have a workshop day where they can come in, bring their laptops. We show them how to set it up. We show them the basics. And then that way they can go back and as a club kind of develop their stuff together, but they have somebody who knows how to do it.
Yeah. Because when I
So
did look at all the clubs and stuff, all I've seen is just like a list. Yeah.
yeah.
So
And
I
so
can see what. Yeah.
it's tricky.
Okay. Yeah. So speaking, you spoke of the Equality Alliance Club. So, um, what all goes on with that, and what do you wanna, what do you all want to expound on with that club? Like, you know, what is it first,
Okay. So
and then
uh-huh.
like you told me, what you want to do as far as plans for that, but like, yeah, let's start with what is the Equality Alliance Club?
Okay, so the Equality Alliance Club is an LGBTQIA plus club on campus. So anybody who identifies as part of the community, as well as allies, are able to join. Like, it's just an open, safe space. When I came back for my bachelor's, I was asked if I wanted to kind of help revive the club.
Hmm.
And I was like, okay, cool. And when I tell you that first semester, I was the only member of the club, and I was still having meetings and recording them and talking to myself in the camera. But it was just like trying to get it going and getting it out there.
Yeah.
And then we did have a couple people who came. I'm like, okay, so what do y'all want out of the club? Do you want it to be more like a political club, or do you want it to be more like of a social club, or like what do you want to get out of it? And so a lot of the people who were at that meeting were like, we want it to be more of a social club. So I was like, okay, perfect, say less. And then again, it kind of fizzled out because the biggest issue, I would say, not necessarily an issue, but the biggest thing, and it's a real concern that I can understand, especially being part of the computer community myself, is like, okay, if we come to this club, like, are we going to be accepted? Is it safe? Because it doesn't matter where you're at. Just in this world nowadays, there's always people who are going to have issues with any and everything. And so
Yeah.
it's been kind of like getting that out there and letting them know that we are supported, like overwhelmingly supported too by faculty, staff, everyone. So it is more of a social club now. So it's just kind of a space where we've tried to create a safe space where people can kind of meet up, talk, hang, and just kind of be themselves, like a no judgment area. And then
Mm-hmm.
also trying to kind of like spread awareness in our presence on campus in a fun way. So like last year we did towards the end of the year we did our humans versus zombies event, which is
Okay.
pretty much just a campus wide game of tag. What does it have to do with being gay? Absolutely nothing. It was just we wanted to be able to have fun, but we wanted everybody to be able to have fun and let loose. Like I
Well,
think we
people
did a
like
little bit,
tag.
huh?
People like tag.
Exactly. So like you like literally if you're a zombie, you're running around trying to tag people. And if you're a human, you're trying to not get tagged by shooting the zombies to stun them with the little Nerf blasters.
Yeah.
And we didn't advertise the best for it, but we still got like a little decent turnout. But what happened was a lot of people started talking about it and they were like, are you going to do it again? And originally we were going to try to do it again this semester around Halloween, but we didn't pre-plan well enough to get some of the kinks out of the way. So we're
Yeah.
definitely doing it next semester again, um, around either midterm or a little bit before finals, just because it is fun. But we said we're going to do a lot of pre-advertising, pre-planning, so everybody knows the rules. We're going to have some workshops and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a good time.
Yeah.
Last year we went and did kind of like a team building thing. We went to an escape room, which was really fun. You had to attend so many meetings. It wasn't a lot, but you just had to be present at so many meetings. And so we got Chick-fil-A beforehand, and then we went to the escape room. And it was a really good time to just kind of like hang and be around each other and like bond because man, when you trapped in a room and you trying to get out, you start realizing things about yourself and others. You be like, why are you talking to me like that? What do you mean? I did pull this rope, and then they go pull the rope and then it works and you're like, I swear I pulled the rope. I'm strong, y'all. Like so it's like little things like that, which is like really
Yeah.
funny. I'm trying to think of what else we did. We're trying to do more stuff this year. Like we were talking about doing a quote unquote sip and paint, but instead of like wine and stuff, we're gonna have like non-alcoholic beverages and just
Yeah.
have a good vibe, open it up to people so they can come chill, and just kind of again connect. That's the biggest thing, like a safe space where you can just connect with people. So yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, um, you pretty much touched on what you all want to do moving forward because that was what I was, you know, what you want to
Sorry, I
do because
pre-answered.
yeah, I mean it's perfectly fine. That's wonderful. Okay, so um, how do you balance being a student and work and life?
I don't. I just cry a lot. I'm just kidding. I do. I'm not gonna lie. I do struggle. It's sometimes I do it absolutely well, and sometimes I do it absolutely horribly, and I just take it one day at a time. I try to create schedules for myself and stick to them as best as I can. And I say that because like life happens. I had a great schedule for myself at the beginning of the semester, and then I ended up in and out of the hospital. So my schedule was invalid because I
Oh,
can't do things when I'm in there. And I was in there
oh
trying to do
gosh.
things. I'm like literally sitting in the bed trying to complete a paper.
Oh my goodness.
So so it's like it's the awkward balance, but like schedules are a big thing for me. I talk about this regularly. Like I go to therapy. I was going like every week, and then I was like, okay, life is actually kind of decent right now, so I try to go every other week. um, just to talk like, hey, these are some stressors I have going on. And even if I don't have something stressing as good stuff, I still like to go to talk about that because sometimes we focus on the bad and not the good. But I
Yeah.
do that to make sure I kind of help keep my mental health in check. Um, some of the activities that I am involved in, I do specifically to maintain a balance, like flag football, for instance.
Mhm.
Um, I hate working out with a passion, but I don't mind doing activities. So flag
Yeah.
football is, yes, an activity, a way for me to connect at school, but it's also a way for me to get a little bit of like fitness in as well, because we're
Yeah.
running on the field and we're doing things, but I'm still creating that bond with my teammates as well. So it's like the best of both worlds. So it's kind of, if I can find things that have, excuse me, I don't want to say like a double meaning, but like I can get double the effort out of, I will. So, ooh, excuse me. I work at school, but I also enjoy that like human interaction. I need that physical fitness, so I'm working out on the club team, but I'm still getting that bonding that I want. So it still allows me to be active physically and within the school. And then I also make sure to put that on my schedule and try to balance that as well. And then learning to
Okay.
say no. I
Yeah.
struggle with that,
Me too. But it's
but
important. And we
I'm
need
getting,
to.
yeah, I'm getting better at it. There are some times where I'm like, I know I should probably say no, but I just can't. And there are some times when I'm like, I know I probably should say yes, but I have to say no. And it's really hard trying to like gauge it sometimes. But I've learned that it is okay to say no. Um,
Mhm.
as long as you say no at the right time too, like not saying yes and then at the last minute saying no, but like from the get-go, I'll look at my schedule. I'm like, man, this is kind of tight. And I'm like, I want to tell you yes, but I'm like, I'm gonna have to say no, or I'm gonna have to say no for right now. As we get closer, if I realize I do have the time, then yes, I will gladly. But right now, the answer is no.
Yeah. Yes, totally understand. I really get that. So, what kind of plans do you have after um, completing GHC? You said you graduate soon. So,
Good
what do
question.
you have?
No, so right now, I have several plans, several plans in
Okay.
place. Because I know I have a vague idea of what my end goals look like. I really enjoy college. I want to stay in higher education working. I would love to be a professor, but I also wouldn't mind working in administration if it allowed me to work with students, like something along the lines of like student life. And
Mhm.
I think that stems from me being so involved in the clubs and enjoying it. I would love to be like an advisor or over or just kind of heading that up. Um, I would love to stay at Georgia Highlands if possible, but if not, I wouldn't
Okay.
mind going to other universities. I do know I want to go to grad school though, regardless of professor or if I want to stay in higher ed, furthering my degree is necessary. So I've already looked at a couple colleges and programs for me to get my master's in, and I've even looked at some for my doctorate for after I get my master's.
Okay.
Um, so it's just kind of like narrowing it down. I have 2 to 3 different potential master's programs I would like to join. Um, because I have a couple different passions, but I said I definitely want at least my first master's. Um, and then I want either my second master's or my doctorate. So we're gonna see how this goes. But I want to stay in higher ed. I really enjoy it.
Okay. Okay. That sounds very interesting. And, ooh, okay.
Yeah, if you knew me years ago, like the fact that I'm talking about like grad school and stuff, like there was a point in my life where I did not think I was gonna even make it out of high school. And then it became a running joke that I was gonna be a professional student just because of how long it was taking me to like get my degree because I was like school hopping and changing majors. And so now I'm like giggling because I'm like, yeah, I'm never gonna leave college. I'm gonna get my degrees, But I'm just gonna stay working in college because I know the life pretty well now. So
Well, this is my second degree, and then after I finish, I plan on getting my master's as well. So I can't
nice.
say a word about what you're doing. So it's fine. I understand.
I was like, you
And then
get
I
it.
took a big long break before I decided I'm going to go back to school.
Yes.
So yeah. So what advice do you have for any future students?
Hmm. Let's see. Just general advice.
Or whatever.
Let's see. New students. I would say get involved. That's like the biggest thing. Regardless of where you go or what you do, you're gonna have to go to your classes anyways. But college isn't just about the classes you take, it's also an experience. So getting involved in any kind of way will just make it better. I feel like I want to say there is a study like if you are involved in school, like outside of the classroom, I think you do have a higher success rate of completion. I'd have to look that up. I feel like I read that somewhere when I was going down one of my deep dives. I swear I'm not just making this up off the top of my head. So I would say get involved because it definitely elevates to the college experience. When it comes to your classes, show up and ask questions. Most professors, whether it's at Highlands or even some other schools, if you show up and you're asking questions, like genuinely trying to learn, professors are there to help you and to teach you. Like, if you're taking that initiative, they'll take the initiative to make sure you get what you need out of the course. Um, I'm trying to think if there's something else. I know there's something else. Get involved, ask questions. I don't know, and just don't be afraid to try something else or to be a little different. Like college is about kind of like especially depending on which point you are, even non-traditional, but especially traditional students too, like you kind of can rediscover or like figure out who you are in college. Because it's a different experience than high school, it's a different experience than work. Um, you might
Yeah,
go into college if you're the same person from when you start college to when you graduate, you didn't do college right.
right.
So you should be experimenting. You should be doing different things. You should be pushing like certain boundaries to kind of figure out who you are or who you want to be. So don't be afraid to take risk and try new things because you never know. It might be like that one little thing you're like, oh, I just went to this random club, and because you went, you ended up making friends with somebody who's, I don't know, like competes competitively for chess. I don't know. And then you find out that you're like low key a chess wizard. Woo! I don't know. That's like the most random thing I could think of, but like you really do like figure things out from like just trying things and taking a risk, whether it's that class that you thought was going to be absolutely difficult and you took it and then found out you had a passion for it, or you
Yeah,
joined the club and accidentally found your best friend.
yeah,
It's just those little things. So,
I
yeah.
agree. Okay, well, I think this would conclude our interview today. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much for
No problem.
uh
Thank you for interviewing me. I enjoyed.
this was really nice. So I really appreciate it. Is there anything else you want to add?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Nope, I think that's everything.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'm gonna